But what I'm saying is women who are over a certain age, who are childless, who are not in a relationship, report to have the it's on the internet. I'm sure I don't have my phone, so I can't look up the exact thing. But I'm sure
They report having heavier amounts of mental health issues. They report having heavier amounts of dissatisfaction. They report having heavier amounts.
Survey.
I don't think so. What you're talking about is an article. What I'm talking about is the actual data, which is backing this up, not an article, which then mints the data. But this isn't just for women, right? This is men as well. When they get in their 30s or 40s and they're childless or don't have a family, they also report much higher dissatisfaction rates, higher frames of mental illness. They make less money. They have less incentives. They have less motivations. Basically, people need each other, right? That's the general motivation. If you were to look at this, though, I'd have to ask you this. I was listening to what you were saying, and I thought it made sense. But you said the thing that validates it is experience, and because it's experience, it's not really sexist. The thing that gets me with that is, what if an employer was a man and he didn't want to ever hire women because he'd had really bad experiences with them? That couldn't be sexist, right? By that same logic, could it? Hang on, let her answer. That couldn't be sexist, right?
What were the experiences? Were all of the women in
They
his
made
life
false. Let's say that several of them made false allegations, and several of them underperformed, and several of them did that. But he had nothing but negative experiences with them. And since that is what informed him in his hiring practices, and that was his experience, isn't he then justified in not hiring them? And wouldn't it not be sexist then, because it's based on experience?
I'm going to have two parts, and I would like if everyone could allow me to finish
Sure.
all day before interrupting.
Sure,
Thank you.
go ahead.
What I would say about that is it is sexist because we're talking about pay, and underperforming is not the same as being essayed.
Well, we're not talking about pay. We're just talking about hiring them at all.
Hiring. If you're hiring someone, you're hiring them to pay them for a job that you're hiring them for. That has nothing to do with your relationship. You don't have to date them. You don't have to spend time with
You don't
them.
have to date the man in the forest.
You don't have to do anything.
You don't have to do anything with the man in the forest.
But aren't you saying that they would be skeptical going into?
No, I'm saying it's the same.
Skeptical going
I'm just telling you it's the same logic. That's all. It's the same logic applied.
What I'm saying, though, is from personal experience, what I was explaining from personal experience as someone who has been essayed, I would rather take my own life than have that happen again.
I understand that.
Is there is nothing worse for me, in my opinion. This is my opinion. There is nothing that someone can do worse to you than that.
I'm not disputing any of that.
What I'm saying is underperforming and having the worst thing done to you cannot even be equated.
Wait, let's back up though, because I understand exactly what you're saying. It makes total sense to me. This is the most horrific thing you could ever think of, and so you're going to select against that thing because this thing happening to you again, you'd rather anything else, including getting eaten by a bear, happen than the thing. I completely understand that. The question is not whether or not SA is really, really bad and you had a traumatic experience with it, though. The question is that it's sexist regardless of how it's informed? You said, no, it's not sexist because that is my experience. And then if it's not sexist because it's your experience, then a man who was falsely accused of SA in his hiring practices, let's say, would be completely justified in never hiring a woman again by the same logic, because he says this is the worst thing. Hang on, I'm almost done. I just let you finish. He could use the same logic. He could say, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Nothing worse. I can never imagine anything worse than this. I'd rather anything happen than this again. He refuses to hire a woman that's totally justified based on his experience. The same logic back to you.
Yes. If that is the situation, initially you said underperforming.
So then it's not sexist. So then he's not being sexist, right?
If we're talking about that, then that wouldn't be sexist.
Right. So then any man who's ever had a false allegation against him, right, and then refuses to hire women after that because of that false allegation, you think that's totally valid?
I think that's valid. Yes.
And it's not sexist, right? Well, then, if I gave you a list of Fortune 500 company executive CEOs who said that they want to advocate a policy that no more women get hired by their company because such a thing did happen to them, you would never say that was sexist, right?
Well, that's different if they're CEOs and they're completely detached from ever interacting with any of those women. I said it wouldn't be sexist for them to not want to work with those
No,
women.
that's not what you said.
But we're
That's not what you
have
just changed the whole goalpost now.
a restaurant owner. I'm thinking of someone who has to have someone, they're hiring women
Mm-hmm.
and those women are directly working with them. That's what I envisioned when you said women work for them and hiring women, and because they're
But
interacting
they,
with
okay,
them, don't want that.
I would assume that based on what you told me your experience is, being anywhere near a situation which could potentially lead to that, which is what we're talking about, spawning into a forest with a random man or a random bear, right? Just the fact you said if it's even 1% that you would not choose that. The CEO of the company is saying the same thing. If it's even 1%, even though I'm detached from these people, I'm definitely not going to hire them. It's the same exact logic. Same.
No, because if you're the CEO, there is not even a 1% chance that you're going to interact with those people. You're not going. You're not
No.
going
You said if it's
to
even, meaning if it was less than that, you still wouldn't take it. You said if it's anything, if it's any percentile, if there's any chance. Here, I'm going to prove it to you. I'll prove it to you. Do you think, statistically, that a woman could accuse you of SA easier if you hire them or if you don't hire them? If you
Bezos hired me and then I accused him of that after never meeting him, I think it would be just as invalid if I was not hired by him. Actually, I think it would be more invalid because then
the whole point here is the disassociation. The idea here is this. It's not whether or not the chances would be unlikely for both, just which thing there'd be a higher chance for. In this case, of course, the chance would be higher that if a woman doesn't in any way or any capacity have anything to do with your company or you, her chance of accusing you of SA significantly go down versus her being closer to you. So that's the case. Same logic as if there was any percentage at all that this could ever happen to me, I'm choosing the bear. And that's totally appropriate and not sexist. And the reason it's not sexist is because it comes from a place of experience. That would be the same thing for a CEO. Can you speak to that real quick? Because it's the same logic. That's why I don't understand.
I think that it's not the same logic only for the reason that you are physically in the company of one and the CEO is not physically in the company or physically in danger of being in a compromising position with one of their 12,000, 60,000 employees, whatever.
You said if there's any percentage, if there was any percentage that this could lead to this, you would never do it. So Brian asked you this. He said, if the chances were, and he gave you a low say, he said, if there's any chance, if it's even 1%, if it's less than that, there's any chance at all that this could happen to you, then no, you're not doing it and you're picking the bear because this is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. The CEO was falsely accused. If he was falsely accused even once, and then says, I'll never hire a woman again, just because there could be a chance, and this is the worst thing that's ever happened. It's the same thing you just said.
Well, if we're going by that logic, then sure,